Matt going to be here?
You should. He didn't indicate otherwise.
I don't think I desired to go there. Okay.
It wasn't in the package.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Deb, do you need one? I've got two up here.
I've got 3 more.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. There he is. How you doing?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna be 3 hours. Charlie, it's gonna be 3 hours.
No, I hope not.
All the stuff you have on here.
Okay, 6:30, call the meeting to order of the Administration Committee for City of Harvard. All committee members are present. And let's see, first item, public comments. Is there anybody who would like to address the committee about something that is not on the agenda? No? Okay, thank you. First item, contract, McGuire Iron Water Tower Asset Management Program.
Yes.
Yes.
So at the last council meeting, we were given some information from representatives of Painters District Council number 30. I took time after the council meeting to reach out to them. Several of their representatives, the village of Depew, speaking directly with the village clerk, and then also going back and talking to representatives from McGuire to kind of straighten out the issues that were going on. As noted in my memo, the parties agreed. McGuire Iron put some assurances in the contracts. They also agreed to let the Painters District Council 30 representatives monitor that they are staying within the prevailing wage, and McGuire was more than happy to invite them in.
Great.
So based on that, and I do believe this issue is at rest, my recommendation is to approve this to be recommended to the council.
We have a motion in that regard.
I'll motion. I do want to say that I do appreciate, if you
Yeah.
communicate to McGuire, I appreciate them taking the time and making the effort to accommodate us on those things. They didn't have to, but they went the extra mile, so it's appreciated.
Absolutely, and thank you for reaching out and doing that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I'll
Second,
second the motion.
any comments, questions? Okay, vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Unanimous. Yay, thank you. FOP equipment donation.
So this is the Fraternal Order of Police. I thought their letter was actually included in the packet.
It was.
It is. It's just stapled a little further. So one of the things that that the FOP wanted to do with their fundraising is to purchase a drone with heat signature capabilities. It would help as far as finding missing persons, or if they're looking for a particular individual. They purchased it on their own funds. There was, we've come to a general understanding that when they do stuff like that, they need to, they can't just use it. They need to make sure that it is part of the city's equipment in order for our liability to also cover it. So this letter is, was sent to Chief, relayed to me so I can relay to you all, is to allow them to donate the Maverick 3 drone to the city of Harvard.
I'll make that motion to donate the drone.
Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
I'll just make one comment. It's to accept the donation. of the
Sorry,
drone.
yeah, thank you.
So we're not donating it, they're donating it to the.
Sorry for the
Yeah, just want to make sure
terminology.
we're clear on that,
Yes,
that's all.
that's what I meant.
We'll consider the motion amended.
To
you.
accept the donation from FOP, let's be legit and legal, Lodge number 134, to donate a Maverick 3 drone to the City of Harvard Police Department for use.
Beautiful. And Dan, you
I
second that?
amend my second
Okay,
to
thank
match
you.
that language.
Thank you.
The one thing I did want to just finish adding during the discussion part here is that they are donating it with the understanding that is primarily used by the PD, but when it is not being used by the PD, that other departments like the Economic Development and Parks and Rec can also use it. So that was one of the things we wanted to make sure they understood, that when you donate it to the city, it becomes city property and can be used throughout.
And a drone is such a useful tool.
It is, it is.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None? Okay. FOP equipment donation. Check. Tree City USA. So I wanted to bring this up, make sure it's still on the radar for everybody. We can start actually at the bottom of the list with the Arbor Day proclamation.
I've got some good news first, if we can
Okay.
go in order here.
Oh, if we can go in order? Yes,
yeah.
sure. The
So-
Tree City USA application?
The process does take a while.
Yep.
And representatives for the state of Illinois expressed their apology that they were still going through the applications when I had called, and they red light ours. So we are officially a Tree City USA by Illinois standards. And our application has been sent on to the Arbor Foundation for national recognition.
Oh.
And as of 5:05 today, they said that April 19th, so far, they see no problems with our application, but they still have to go through all the Illinois applications at one time.
Okay.
They are supposed to start either by Friday or by Monday, but they anticipate by April 19th that we will get our Welcome to Tree City USA packet, which will include flyers, flags, and a nice a plaque to go on the wall.
Okay,
So I
very
anticipate that going through.
Well, good job. Thank you. Thank you. And then I know that saw through an email that Mike's on the council agenda for later this month has the appointments for the tree board. And thank you very much for doing that. And then Lou updated the Arbor Day proclamation from last year, although it's April 26th is the Friday.
I'll
I
give
know.
full credit. Lori saw that I was pretty busy today, so she went ahead and asked
Yeah.
me if it was okay.
Yeah.
I told her April 27th, so I'll take the hit on that.
Yeah, but it was a leap year, so it moved by 2 days. Yeah, I
Right.
know.
And then some other changes to this proclamation versus last year is that we have a new city logo. And then under the now therefore I, it should say Michael P. Kelly instead of just Michael Kelly.
Oh, it says Michael P. Kelly on here.
Right here.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I just
So-
looked at it at the bottom. Okay.
But pending
To distinguish him from Michael J. Kelly.
It's a very common name.
Yes.
So essentially though, after these changes are made, it will still pretty much read like this.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. And then one thing that I forgot to put on the list is, I know one of the things that the Tree City folks like to see you do is actually have a day where you plant a tree.
It's
As-
funny you bring that up.
Yeah, so,
So what it is you're right, the 26th, I've already been talking with Rob about trying to set up, it may not be very big this year because it was
Yeah.
kind of last minute additions, but we can use it as a stepping stone for next year.
Yeah.
What it typically happens is that you go and get some trees, and then you have a tree planting day. And then you try to make a little bit of a gathering. I know in my last community, we had hundreds of people that came out, but that was also the birthplace of Arbor Day.
Right.
So,
Yes.
but other communities do the same. So, and not to steal your thunder,
Right.
we're going to be planning that for this year
Okay,
and hopefully bigger next year.
okay. Are we going to do it at the dog park? know?
The location is still yet to be determined because this was dropped on drop like yesterday.
Okay, okay. Because I would just, I know we've talked about it in the past, but the dog park would be actually nice. We can put a fence around the trees, but it would be nice to have trees to provide shade for the future there, just as an idea.
That was in Nebraska, Lou?
Yeah, Nebraska City, Nebraska.
I
Is a
probably hadn't
birthplace.
seen the tree before.
Yeah, I was saying,
Yeah,
it's the cornfields.
yeah, that's why they started it. It's like,
That's right.
we need to
Wow.
plant some trees.
Well, and
got
Tara,
nothing.
the representative from Arbor Day Foundation, remembered me from Nebraska City. So it was like, oh, Lou. And that kind
okay.
of sped things along.
Small world,
Yeah.
yeah. So, well, thank you, thank
Someone
you.
told me the state tree there is a telephone pole. I'm sorry.
No, Charlie, I think it's a wheat stalk.
Well, all I say is Nebraska City was not as nice a city as Harvard, but it was such a nice city that they named the state after it.
It sounds like an inside. Okay, well, thank you. Item number 6, discussion of video gaming fees.
You want to take this from?
No.
Okay, so, the video gaming fees, at the moment, the city charges $25 per gaming machine. So, each year, when, those, businesses that have gaming machines have to renew their gaming license, and the city issues a new permit sticker for, the year, it's a $25 fee. What I think the council, or certainly the city staffing may or may not have realized, but that gaming fee actually can be up to $250 per machine. And so I would like to make a recommendation to the committee to have, to consider raising those fees to $250 per machine, beginning in the 25-26 fiscal year, such that when we issue permits for the 24-25 fiscal year, we can also notify those users that the fee would increase in the next fiscal year, so that they have a full year of advance notice that those fees would change.
So other than we can, what's the rationale for increasing it by,
The
10
the
times.
rationale simply is it is an opportunity for you to get additional revenue.
do we know what other communities charge?
I think most communities charge $250.
And keep in mind that these gaming licenses are highly profitable. So it's not,
Oh, and we get a big chunk of it.
we do.
I mean, 5%.
And, but it's more or less money that's being left on the table that we could use, well, the city could use, and it would take a little bit of pressure off the average taxpayer down the road.
Could we get, area cities and villages, what they charge per gaming unit?
We can certainly gather that information for you.
Thank you.
Well, and it'd be helpful to know what the actual dollar amount is that we're talking about. I mean, how, the revenue, if we were to increase it, it would be about 30,000. So
so
right
what
now,
is it
it's
right now?
about 3.
Yeah, 92 machines.
You're talking about $3,000 versus 30.
Okay. So instead of 3,000, 30,000. Okay.
Doesn't seem like anything slows it down.
No,
Um,
no.
You know, the
Yeah.
initial fee is $10,000. I
Right.
think. And that doesn't slow anybody down. I mean, there can be 3 businesses in a row, and all 3 of them have gambling machines.
Yeah, and they all have people sitting at their games.
There's always somebody there to put money in them, so.
Is 92, even with the little corner store now that's putting them in?
I don't believe that that one is included yet.
Yeah, okay. How many
we've
was
not
that
issued
again? I
those
couldn't
permits yet.
remember.
So each business can have currently up to 6 machines.
6,
Not all businesses have 6.
correct.
It used to be limited to 5. State changed the law to allow up to 6. Some of them have added a machine, and there are some, I think, that may be 4 machines, but I think the majority of them are 5 or 6.
So if hypothetically, if it's 6 machines per location, you're looking at an increase of only $1,500. If you go to the maximum rate of $250 per place.
Oh, per place. Okay, gotcha.
With their cap
Per
of 6,
business.
Right.
with their cap of 6 machines.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it'd be 1,500
makes
versus 150.
I mean, it sounds like a big jump from where it's at now, but I mean, it's not really that big. It's really not that amount.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
in the
and-
grand scheme of things.
yeah, and giving them time to sort of adjust to the
Yeah,
idea.
that would give them, assuming it was approved, that would give them a full year to collect those fees to pay them the
Yeah.
following year.
So is the ask to recommend to the city council that they pass this? Is that,
That's the ask, yes.
I make a motion that we recommend to the city council that they approve the $250 fee
For the 25-26 fiscal year.
for the
or beginning.
25-26 fiscal year. And to put a heads up in this year's mailing to for their license fees.
I'll second that.
Okay, Dan? Any discussion, any further discussion?
Are we gonna have for city council, the neighboring communities of what they charge?
Yeah, staff can put that together and include it in the packet, and we'd also include a draft of the proposed ordinance, the amendment.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes. Thank you. Okay, Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation, backyard chickens.
So as you recall, there were just some changes that were proposed, or there was enough questions to cause this issue to come right back to the admin committee. I believe Mr. Gorman here has some proposed changes.
Charlie, would you like to?
Well, I wouldn't call them proposed changes. I would just say that this is discussion points. And do you want me to do this, or are you going to do it? You want to go down through these, or?
I'd love it if you did. I mean, well, really, because you put a lot of thought into this and put it together, and I appreciate that.
What I proposed to Lisa is that we break this, there's a lot to chew here, and I thought what we could do is break it down into sections and then try to get agreement on the individual through a straw vote on the individual issues, and then hopefully be able to piece that together into one motion that can be made that we can approve to send to the city council. And those areas are, let me see if I,
Looks like conditional versus permitted use,
yeah,
and then standards.
let me get to that here. I got too many copies of this.
It's in your, oh yeah,
it's
just keep
like
going, you'll get to it.
Did we want to start
It's
with
like
that,
the
or
last
do we want to go through the text of?
Well, I think
Yeah,
we could, yeah.
the issues are conditional versus permitted use.
Well,
And
are you saying like permanently conditional or the temporary conditional? I just want to clarify that we're starting from the same place.
Well, I think also that permitted use is still on the table, isn't it?
I'll be honest, I won't support it if it's permitted.
Well, we can, conditional you can break down into both, I suppose.
Well, I was fine with the temporary conditional, because they were talking about making it like a 2-year thing and then doing away with the conditional use, making it permitted if it deemed necessary or it made sense to the
Well, the-
zoning board. I'm fine with that. I don't think it
The
needs to be
length of
conditional
time,
forever.
if you decide it is going to be conditional, then you can decide on the length of time, I think, so.
Okay, I mean, yeah, that's fine.
And everyone's familiar with the process for a conditional use. Notice has to go up to 250 neighbors, certified letters, $900 fee.
Well, let me get through the list, and then we'll get into each one.
If I can just interrupt just 1 second. It's more for our new people that are here versus the people who've been here before. Typically, this is what happens. They'll end up discussing, and then or they'll have the open discussion after.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, we know
I saw a
you're
worried
here.
look on your faces,
Yes.
so I thought you'd say something.
And then, one of the things that I thought was kind of incomplete in the last version were the standards. And that, we need standards either way. We need standards whether it's conditional or whether it's permitted or whether it's temporarily conditional. Because we have to know what it is we're enforcing or asking somebody to, what standards to live up to and what's required. And I broke that down as well into different sections like the run, the coop, and offsets, manure, feed, all that sort of thing is in here as well. Permit requirements, administration, coop and run, storage, chicken registering and health requirements, screening. Screening, by that what we mean is that in the original document, they were allowing either a fence to go around the coop or some kind of live bushes or something, it's at a certain height. And there was some question as to whether that should, both should be or should be a fence or how high it should be and that sort of thing. And then fees and fines. Initial and renewal fees. The initial fee was proposed to be $300 to ensure that applicants pursuing backyard chickens don't do so on a whim. We chose to make chicken, if we choose to make chickens a conditional use, and does this fee still need to be there? In other words, all I was trying to do with that fee was create a barrier, so if somebody just didn't do it and see if I like chickens or not. There had to be some sort of fee to get into it. But if we do go to conditional use, that fee will take care of that, attached to a conditional use, and I don't think that the high initial fee is necessary if that's the case.
Right.
So that's we'll talk about that. And then per chicken fee and banding requirement, there was a question there as to whether or not we really needed that or not, or whether just the $30 annual fee was enough to cover those expenses. And in planning and zoning hearing fee, and that's only relevant if we decide that we do have a conditional use at the end. And then I do have the proposed additions in your packet as well, but I think we should go back and take these things one at a time and start with the conditional use. The only thing I can say is that, from my standpoint, is that it seems to me that a conditional use is more for businesses than it is for residential. I try to figure out what the conditional, what the planning and zoning board would find that does not meet the standards. In other words, if they get a permit and they meet the standards and the coop is to the permit, all the requirements are met, what would constitute a conditional use? You know, in other words, what would that homeowner do that would cause him not to be approved for a permit? And you can, the lawyer can correct me if I'm wrong, but the difference between a variance and a conditional use is that they're both, a conditional use is a permitted use.
Right.
And a variance is where it's not a permitted use and you're trying to change it into a special permission.
Mhm.
In this case, no other, and when they use it for businesses, it's things like restaurants and service shops, car servicing shops and those kinds of things where they may not have the parking right, they may not have the lighting right, they may not, there may have to be some kind of blocking view of a business. Is that business dangerous in that particular zone?
Right.
Those kinds of things. None of that applies here. And there is right now we have no conditional uses in residential zones. There aren't any in the
Right.
UDO. So to me, I think if we do this right on the permit side,
Mhm.
and we put all these rules in place and enforce them, that would make a lot more sense. The fee would be lower. And there's another thing. I read the manual that we got when we became aldermen
All right.
on
yeah.
zoning and so on, and
Yeah.
it says that you cannot, reject an Italian restaurant because you don't like Italian food. And
Yeah.
okay, so you can't reject a person from having chickens just because you don't like chickens. And so again, I ask the question, what is it that the Planning and Zoning Committee would come up with
Right.
that would disqualify a person if he met all the requirements that we put into the
Right.
permit?
Right. I mean, it's like, one of the most controversial types of conditional uses that we've done are gravel pits. And, before I was on the council, was speaking out, against different gravel pits in town. But, came to understand that from the council standpoint, if the person submitting for that conditional use in that district, if they're meeting all of the criteria that we've put out as necessary for the conditional use, and they're addressing all of those, it's legally very difficult to turn that down without being subject to a lawsuit, because you're being arbitrary at that point. So I concur with
My question for the
Charlie
committee
says.
is, what are you trying to accomplish if you make it a conditional use? What, by making it a conditional use, what does that accomplish for you as a committee or as a city council when enacting this ordinance? And maybe you look at it from that perspective, why you feel that a conditional use will, what is the goal of it being a conditional use? And then that may help you to determine whether or not it makes sense to use that particular strategy for this particular ordinance.
To expound on that, if one of, your concerns is the length of time, and then it's permitted and they can have it forever, you can make the permits, required to be renewed on a yearly basis, or you can make them for, a biannual basis. So you can limit, can limit the permit the city will issue.
Yeah, we'll be getting into that, and it is on a yearly basis for renewal, and there's also, what I'm recommending anyway, is there's a deal that if you violate any of the rules and so on, we have, it's like a 3-strike and you're out clause perhaps in there where, if you get written up 3 times within a year, you could lose it permanently, and the permit. There is a 30-day renewal and an inspection each year in what's been written up. And so I think they're what we're proposing is pretty tight now. I mean, if we go with what's in here, it was kind of very open to interpretation, I think, before, but I think that this possibly could tighten it up quite a bit so that it can be watched rather closely.
If the goal for conditional use is to create a kind of a pilot or temporary authorization, then you might consider, instead of doing conditional use, you set a sunset clause that forces city council to address the issue before the sunset clause takes effect, to either remove the sunset clause or it automatically goes away. That could be the tool that you might want to use to dictate that it's a pilot program versus using conditional use. You just need to understand what the purpose or what you're trying to
I'd be comfortable changing it to having a hard sunset in there that needs to be addressed, or it
Your pilot.
2-year pilot. Only because of the fact that there are, upon my own research, there are communities that have had this program set up, and they do have conditional at county level. And it's not a lot, but there are a few, and there are communities where there is considerable issues with people not following the rules, and it's not policed, and unfortunately those communities are not open about the fact they have those issues. But there are documented meetings where people in HSAs have complained because they have dead chickens in the street and all kinds of issues, and people slaughtering them in their backyards, and it goes unaddressed. We've covered it to death, but
yes.
that's why I'd like to have a 2-year pilot on this with a sunset, so that way we can at least see how it is, and if there's issues, we can address them. If there's not, then we can just take it away and just let it go.
Okay. Just,
So my concern about that, the 2-year, if we do like 2-year, sunset clause, all these people only say 5 families do this, and we keep the permits $300. You just let them waste almost $900, I think it was going to be, after you do all this stuff, privacy fence, because we still haven't done. Even if you plant trees aren't cheap, especially tall ones, to meet the barriers that we talked about in January's city council meeting. So just because it's sunset, they're not gonna just stop not having chickens because of that, because they put all that investment in there. They're gonna say, well, screw the city, we're gonna keep doing it. Look at all these other ones that we hear that supposedly have all these places have chickens around town. So that's my concern about the sunset, because the fee and everything is so high. If once you do it and say, like, some of us won't be here and the next time it is done, the next city council people that show up and say, nope, we're done with it, those people that invested it, they're gonna still keep doing it because they put all that money in there. They're not just gonna say, well,
but if the program is working, I mean, if there aren't problems, I mean, if it's working, then it doesn't sunset.
I mean, it ultimately comes down to if there are a lot of problems, if we do have problem cases, if we're having a lot of issues with policing it, with managing it, then at least it gives it. We can always take the sunset out, but you can't add it back in. So
No,
we
I
would
get that.
have to go in and actually remove the ordinance and make it illegal after the fact. If we were to make it just permitted with no sunset, we would have to go in and actually remove the ordinance and change it actively. At least with the sunset, it gives us a chance to review it and say, okay, are we having issues? No? Okay, get rid of the sunset. There's no problem. If there is a lot of issues, then there's at least a fail-safe that allows us to do that.
Keep in mind too, if people are going into it with the idea it could be eliminated down the road, they're taking that risk. So if they are out money and 2 years from now, the council changes and doesn't want to have chickens, then they're out that money.
I mean, ultimately, if we have a pilot program, my view is just another perspective on it, is that the people that want to do it, if they know that it's a pilot program and they know that we're going to be reviewing this and scrutinizing it, it only gives them more incentive to police it themselves and encourage others to follow along with it, because if they don't, they know that it can just be ended. So it kind of encourages better behavior, I think, for the first couple of years at least. So that, I mean, it's not taking it away from them, but it at least gives us a chance to review, is all I'm saying. So
So is this something you want to do a straw vote on, whether it's conditional versus permitted with a sunset clause?
Yeah, what do you think? I'm asking, I guess, is it okay to have a permitted use with the sunset clause of
I'd be fine with that. I mean, it
2 years?
accomplishes,
2 years?
yeah, it accomplishes the same thing, just maybe with a little bit less of the administrative issue and extra cost.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but it's almost the same thing. Getting rid of an ordinance is about, I mean, you still have to meet, you still have to talk, and you still have to make a vote either way.
True,
I
but
mean,
it
you can
forces,
take,
it forces the issue, and we have to do a review on it instead of ignoring
well,
it.
anybody can force us to. I mean, anybody on the city council can force a vote, or at least bring it up as a motion.
They can make a motion.
All right, okay, I'm not going to argue with you, because I think this is fine,
I also think it would address some of the concerns that some of the constituents
Right.
have. The people that want it to be conditional, at least it's a fair
Yeah.
trade-off, I
It's a
think.
pilot, and, I think that everybody knows it's a pilot, and so we're watching, and it's not just open season, everybody get your chickens. It's like, okay, it could be gone in 2 years if this doesn't go well. So, like you said, it gives them an incentive to police themselves and make sure it does go well, so it does continue. So, sounds like we maybe have consensus. 3, at least. Matt, are you open to that?
Can I make a comment,
Yeah.
Alderwoman? The other option for the pilot program is typically a quantity. We're going to try out 10 permits for 2 years to gauge how it goes, see what issues there are and things like that. And that's what I've seen, that's what Woodstock started to do, was a pilot program. I can't remember the quantity, but it was a low quantity to start with. It never took off, but that's also something to consider.
I mean, I think, I don't have a problem with the amount of people that want to have chickens. If there's a lot of people that want to have chickens and it's a positive program and it's proven that the concerns of the constituents that they have are either unfounded or are, dispelled and they're happy with it, then it really doesn't matter to me how many people have it, because I think 1 person, 10 people, 100 people isn't going to make a big difference, and the more people that have it, it proves that there's demand. So I don't think putting a limit on the number of permits is that necessary if we have it as a 2-year pilot. At least we get a chance to see what the interest is. If we end up with like 3 people interested and there's countless issues with those 3 people, then we obviously have an answer on what we're going to do. But I'm fine with giving it a chance if we're going to do it.
I'd agree with that, yeah. So Charlie, before we go into the standards discussion, I know woman Rahana is here, and she operates Georgia's Place, which is a bird sanctuary just outside of town on 14, and she has a lot of chickens that she has rescued and that she takes care of, and I think it would be worthwhile for us to hear some
Sure,
of
okay.
her perspective on that. So, Rohana, yeah, if you come up and introduce yourself and your address.
So, good evening. My name is Rohana Mohammed Smith. I'm the co-founder of Georgia's Place Bird Sanctuary here in Harvard. So we're at 20612 Route 14 at Harvard. We're a 501c3 nonprofit sanctuary that rescues and provides permanent shelter for abused, neglected, and dumped birds while promoting compassionate living for these birds. I have a degree personally in organismal and population biology, 24 years of animal rescue and rehabilitation experience, and specifically 12 years of experience with chicken care. So one of the things that my concern was the Midwest winters. The Midwest winters can detrimentally harm chickens that are not properly sheltered with heat. We've seen horrific injuries due to frostbite from frostbitten combs and wattles end up falling off to frostbitten feet that have had to be amputated, just from backyard chicken people that we don't have the experience. These birds are descendants of jungle fowl that are used to warm temperatures. So just because a chicken can survive sub-zero temperatures doesn't mean that they should not be sheltered from them or have access to heat. I can see this being a problem if backyard chickens are allowed for people with no experience or for people who don't want to invest in proper housing. So backyard chicken keepers will have to be trained on predator proofing, which you guys have discussed, it seems like. So as we do have predators here, quite a few. Chickens can and will get sick. This was another concern. Often reproductive problems like egg yolk peritonitis or egg binding can be significantly painful for chickens that are not treated. What we've learned from observing backyard chicken groups is that a lot of keepers don't think that they should take an animal that they paid $3 for to a vet that might charge them hundreds of dollars, just to make sure that these sicknesses are under control, which is an issue, and to provide pain relief. It's extremely important for the health and quality of the life of these hens to receive veterinary care when necessary, and it's important that a potential chicken keeper find a veterinarian that they can work with before they are allowed to get chickens, we feel. There are the common diseases, two big ones. Highly pathogenic avian influenza. That was pretty big just a couple years ago, very scary. And Merrick's disease that can wipe out flocks and spread through fomites on feathers, dander, and feces. Not only can this wipe out the flock of a single home, but these diseases can spread to neighboring flocks. So it is something to also consider. The sexing that happens in hatcheries is not always accurate. So therefore, when people buy chicks from places like Tractor Supply or online, people occasionally end up with roosters. And so they don't realize it until the chicks grow up to be a little bit bigger. And then if Harvard won't extend the ordinance to allow roosters, this will prove to be a problem for chicken keepers. So what do they do with the roosters? People dump them. We've seen it time and time again. People dump roosters in parks and nearby woods to fend for themselves, ensuring a cruel fate of starvation and predation. As a sanctuary, I also fear that these birds will get dumped on us, and we don't have endless room to take them. So, if the ordinance comes to pass, I do recommend the following for anyone who is allowed a permit to keep chickens as part of the permit process. A letter from a veterinarian who sees and knows how to treat chickens. There are none in Harvard or Woodstock. Believe me, we have done our research, which makes this harder, but I can provide names of those near Algonquin and the Chicagoland area. We usually end up going to Spring Hill Veterinary Clinic in Carpentersville. Dr. Gillett sees chickens. And there is Niles Animal Hospital, and there's UW-Madison, is where we go to in Wisconsin. And then a half day, we also recommend, if this is a possibility, a half day of volunteering at our sanctuary so that they may see exactly what chicken keeping requires and to get proper care tips from an experienced sanctuary that provides exceptional care to our birds. After this half day, I can provide a professional letter that states that they've completed the requirement. So if that was something that you would consider, we would definitely love to kind of share our experiences, and people that don't have the experience can kind of see how it is. We can have them clean out the coops. We can have them handle the chickens, work with the chickens. We can show them, how to keep veterinary records and so on. And that's it. So thank you for allowing me to speak. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions for Rohana?
Yeah, any questions?
Give me a copy of that, or?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to make sure we get the contact list for those veteran.
Oh, I don't have that on
veterinarians.
there, but I can,
If you can provide it, even like an email to the city staff, just so that we have that list of vets that will work with
okay, yeah.
chickens, that's helpful, because I think that's something that is a big concern, is the disease rates, vaccinations, and proper care.
Yeah, definitely.
My issue with this, with the vet, is we don't make sure every person that has a dog or cat have a vet. Yes, it's supposed to have rabies tags from county, but that doesn't mean that they get them. We do not make sure they always have a vet. Just because you get a rabies shot from the vet as well doesn't mean you have to keep bringing your dog back to the vet and do checkups. So I don't know why I don't think we should include a vet thing for the chickens. If that's where you're going. That they
Well-
need to have a written documentation about a vet.
The way I'm looking at it too is that the part of the reason why these people want to have chickens is to produce eggs. So we're not talking about a dog, we're talking about livestock. And chickens are livestock.
I
So-
get that.
So
I've-
what I'm saying is
I grew up on farms.
Yeah,
I've
so
had chickens before.
chickens that go untreated for an illness, that can spread to the eggs, that can spread to people. Now, it's also going to be in this ordinance that, the prohibition
Stuff from eating
of,
dogs can spread to people too.
but we don't drink dog milk.
Just saying.
We don't, nothing about a dog is produced for food or consumption.
Thanks.
So that's what I'm saying, is because these are people, you're using this for consumption, and these
And there are vets around this area that do farm animals with chickens, not just the big clinics.
What I'm saying, a
veterinarians.
list of veterinarians are fine. I mean, vaccination records, I have no problem requiring those, because the
Vaccination records, sorry.
No, go ahead.
There, you can't really get, because hatcheries usually are required to vaccinate right away for Merrick's, and then that's it. So there's no other required vaccinations that a bird would need. It was just, if a bird gets like egg peritonitis or something like that, it's a very, very painful disease. So, the things, as far as eggs, one of the biggest things is there's certain medications that can pass through the egg, if people eat them. So there's always a withdrawal time, but, the biggest thing is just like, making sure that these birds are healthy and not just suffering if they do need vet care. So I do think you don't have to prove that you're going to take them to the vet, but I think a letter knowing where you should be able to go.
No,
should be
that's
a-
fine with that. If that's what you meant, but it sounded like more like saying you had a vet.
What I've added here is that, under chicken health, is that chickens shall be kept or maintained healthily. I borrowed that word, I didn't make it up. And unusual illnesses or deaths of chickens must be reported to the county health department, but we could fill that out more.
That's what I'm getting
Yeah,
at.
there's some things we could do, like we could make recommendations without making them demands too, I mean, and I imagine if you take that course that's available, that a lot of this is in there about things that you should do, and how you should take care of your chickens and what's required and so on. So and that's in here. That we're going to require that that they take that video course.
I mean, if we don't want to do the video course, I mean, we've got
Yeah,
a
I
local
think
person offering the half day.
there's a lot
hands-on.
there's a lot of like information out there on the internet that you can definitely watch those videos and things like that, or take a video course. But that's nothing unless you're immersed in it fully. So I think, you could book learn, but then you learn real life. And so that's with everything. And that's why I really feel like if they come and they spend time with chickens, because they might be there for 4 hours, like I say 3 to 4 hours that they should be there. And they might be there and they might be like, whoa, I don't even want to touch these birds. They just thought it was a cool idea to have eggs, something so they could get eggs, but then they're just like, this is too much. There's too much feces here, there's too much this, that, I don't want to deal with it. And that might change some minds. So it's just kind of helping to prepare people that are interested in, doing something like this.
And
Because this is a big feat to take on.
And I did put something in here about roosters. It's in that you can't tell sometimes until 6 months
Right.
whether it's a rooster or not. So many jokes. But anyway, I think that that what we came up with here is, it just says you have to get rid of them after 6 months. It doesn't say how to get rid of them
Right.
or anything, but it just says,
So-
And people dump them.
so that's
all
in
the
our
time.
rule. If we
So
adopt
what-
this,
I mean, what would somebody do with, they realize they have a rooster?
Right. That's the problem. Therein
Yeah.
lies the problem. There is
Right.
nothing. So unless you call around, I mean, luckily now we have social media where you can go on things like Facebook, and there's like unwanted farm animal groups, and
Okay.
there's all kinds of groups out there that you can find somebody that might be willing to take a rooster. But as a sanctuary, like we across the board, all the sanctuaries in this area, well, the closest one to us is in Richmond, and then there's the rest of them are like Wisconsin, and then much further south. We're all full, with roosters. Like, we're up to capacity, so we take as many as we can, and people always just want to dump roosters on us so there really is no good unless you extend that ordinance out to roosters. Roosters are pretty great as well. So
I'm just going to ask that we get back on track here.
So, thank you.
thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you very much.
You're at standards.
Standards.
Yep. And the first thing on the standards is where do we put all of this? One of the things that, don't get me wrong, I like the UDO. I think it's a great document, but you can sure tell it was done separately from the rest of the code.
Yes.
I mean, it's, so you don't know where things are, and sometimes and the references aren't always there either. So if you find something in the UDO, the reference, there may be something in the old code that's assumed, and somebody who's been around forever knows that, but it's not intuitive to go somewhere like to find it. To me, the simplest way to do this, since this is just affecting residential, is to put it in a code and not in the UDO, as a chicken ordinance containing all the elements. Lou, does that make sense?
I'd recommend putting it in chapter 12 along with dogs and other animals. You just add a new,
And to just
a new
have it as a
paragraph.
subtitle under,
I mean, if it's going to be permitted use, it wouldn't have to be, I don't see a necessity for having it in the UDO.
right.
And you could just have a reference in the UDO, backyard chickens, C. and
But if
a
you wanted
reference
to put a
chapter
line
12.
in the UDO chart as a permitted use, you could refer to back to the code in the reference.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think that, then you've got a cross-reference.
Okay, because, you can find bits and pieces even now about animals and so on in different
Right.
sections.
Right.
And even the fines, the fines has its own section, and, okay.
It's getting worked on though, Charlie.
Yeah, it's getting worked on by Lou, right?
Sure.
Offsets from buildings and property lines, there was, on that, I think that, the one that stopped me cold was, there was a recommendation to keep manure, 30 feet from any lot line. And a lot of lots are only 60 feet wide. So you gotta find a dead center, I guess, in
Yeah,
your lot if you applied that standard. So I don't know what to put there.
You said manure?
Yeah, the manure storage,
Oh,
waste.
Gotcha.
And then you, I think, Donovan, you had some questions about offsets from the main residence and also from the property line.
They had recommended 4 feet from the property line, which is your standard setback for an accessory structure, and then 10 feet from any building.
Yeah. And then that brings us to the screen. If you had a coop on it, 4 feet from a property line, that may be a little close to the property, but and I think what's meant here by screening is something around the coop and the run, not around the whole yard. It's just so you can't view the coop from any angle. You know, so is that acceptable, 4 feet and 10 feet? And then what would you do with the waste?
Well, the issue with the waste, I mean, 30 feet does sound like a lot, but the issue you have is if you've got a property that has, like, let's say a home, and the home is built within, let's say, 6 feet of the property line, or whatever the minimum is, and we have it to the property line, but it's, let's say, 5-10 feet, they're now 10 to 15 feet from somebody's bedroom window. So I'm not saying 30 feet is necessary, but that's the offset that I think we need to consider, is not necessarily just the property line, but how far away from another like, okay, if you're in a standard city lot, okay, like we've got all over a couple blocks from here, and these houses are built, and the property line is 6 feet from, let's say, the bedroom window, and then there's maybe another 6 to 8 feet to the next house. They build that, we say it's 4 feet from the property line, it's going to be right by somebody's window.
Well, unless we say that it has to be in the rear yard.
Well, depending on how big the rear yard is, I can show you houses in my neighborhood where the rear yard is right up against the house, because they don't have a rear yard because the house was built and there's just not a big enough depth of yard.
They probably aren't going to be able to meet any of the setbacks.
That's what that's why I'm not
Yeah.
saying we have to have it 30 feet. I'm just saying that as we discuss the number, we just have to consider like where these houses are built and how close they're going to be. And while we say property line, what's on the other side of that property line is what I'm saying.
Donovan, Ann, what was the preferred distance away? Is it 4 feet, 10 feet?
That is for the accessory structure setbacks. I don't recall seeing
No, there's not, but you didn't have it. It was in one of the things I picked up to put in, that manure had to be stored 30 feet away from, and it came to me that manure does need to be stored away somehow, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to have that.
Well, would it make sense, kind of like dog waste, that, it has to be removed from the property weekly with your weekly garbage pickup? So it's not stored per se, but.
But can it be composted,
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I think it's a very valuable,
So
maybe we
distance-wise,
yeah.
If you treat it like compost, you mean?
Right,
But
if
then
you
we
actually,
probably wouldn't need anything at all, would we?
distance-wise, I mean, 30 feet is extreme. I would do half of that, 15 feet from any building or structure, from any.
Property line?
Correct.
Okay, so
I mean, 15 feet from the property line is reasonable, because then you're talking at least probably 20 feet from somebody's home. I mean, like I said, during the summertime, somebody decides they want to leave this open and they're composting and they've got a fair amount.
So
It's going to be an interesting day.
are you in general agreement on 15 feet?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I'm not saying I'm against anything. I'm just saying that as we consider this, I'm saying that the property line is misleading, because you don't know what's on the other side of that property line. Somebody could say it's my property line, and I get that, but if I'm piling up compost and it's right next to somebody's bedroom, that's.
Yeah, Dan, sorry to be devil's advocate again, but we do live in a town that every year, if you have your windows open, you're gonna smell the manure from the farm fields,
So
especially from the waste from there. So you're gonna smell it no matter what. 'Cause you smell manure all over this town because
There's a
of the
big
farm
difference
fields.
from a
Every
couple
day.
miles away and something that's 10
And
feet from your
trust me,
face.
especially when it's our human waste that's in the fields, that you can smell pretty good from, especially on my subdivision.
Yeah.
let's keep it on the chicken.
okay,
I know, but I'm just being devil's advocate about the whole manure thing.
okay,
So, sorry,
okay.
I
15
missed your
feet
name.
setback.
Yeah, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I just was gonna say, compost bins, like you could easily get an enclosed
Please step up to the microphone.
Yeah, you could easily get an enclosed compost bin and put it, and then that way, I don't know if it would matter how close it was to a structure, but if you had it in an enclosed compost bin and, added some newspaper and kind of stirred it up, it would decompose pretty quickly, and it's amazing fertilizer, so.
I mean, if we want to, Charlie, if you want to have that be, if it's an enclosed container, that eliminates a lot of concern.
Well, it is required.
Okay.
Chicken manure waste storage shall be permitted within so many feet of the property line and only in the rear yard. All stored chicken manure shall be covered by fully enclosed structure with a roof or lid over the structure, which is, just something to put it in and cover it. No more than 3 cubic feet of chicken manure shall be stored or permitted on the tract of land at any time. So you have to get rid of it when it accumulates.
That's fair.
Any that's not used for manure or fertilizing in the
Fertilizing,
yard.
composting.
Yeah, compost, right. And the chicken coop surrounding area shall be kept free of trash and accumulated droppings or waste and manure. Uneaten food shall be removed in a timely manner. So we're trying to keep it clean, but I just wanted to, but that one confused me because I know that there's yards that are 60 feet. And the original said 30, so. Okay, so back to
Fees and fines?
the coops and runs. I don't know if we have to go through this. Donovan, basically I used your original specs as far as size. So it's the same, although I think I made the run a little bigger, more square feet per chicken. But I used the number of chickens that you recommended in the original recommendation to the city council, based on size. So that doesn't change. But if you want to go through I don't hope, does anybody get a chance to read through these at all before?
Yes.
The coop, the one question I saw, somebody, Lisa, I think you had a question on the, to be frank, I did not know what hardware cloth was. I had to look it up. I don't know what, because it said that, they recommend not using chicken wire because rodents can get through it and
Yep.
so on. They say you should use hardware cloth at half inch or quarter inch.
Quarter inch.
Quarter inch, which is basically, very similar to chicken wire, only it's got smaller holes and so on. They also recommend that you bury it in the ground to keep things from digging in or digging out of the chicken coop.
Yep.
and run. So I put those in. I don't know if that's too much or
No, I think that's necessary.
or what, but it just seems like if someone
raccoons,
does
anything that can dig will dig under that. Will dig under it, and if they're there, they will get it to it.
in lieu of that, you can, if it has a floor, you can staple the stuff under the floor. So,
If it's as long as it's sealed, because the problem you have is if they can dig, they will dig.
and last time we had a gentleman here who was talking about putting it on a trailer or something and then moving it around his yard, to different places, and then he just pull the drawer out and the fertilizer drop and then he'd move it to another spot. And, but this recommended highly that you put stakes in the ground or something, because when the wind catches these things.
Yep.
You get a good sized wind or something, the neighbors will get to meet your chickens that way. So it's probably a good idea to have some kind of stakes or something to hold it in. But I think these are pretty straightforward, and if we don't have to spend too much time on it, maybe, I could get you a copy of these as well, and then you could look them over and see if, because I'm the opposite of you in this. I'm not an expert at all. But I did do a lot of reading in the last few months on
Yep.
on chickens. Okay, so and there is no grazing of the chickens outside of the run. They can't leave the run. So there is no what else is it? Oh, I wanted to cover this too, the initial the fees and so on, when does the licensing start? Are we gonna do it on a per basis when a year from when they get their license and then renew? Or are you planning on having them all?
Beginning of the year, yeah. Right, yeah, is it gonna be,
Yeah,
Well, if we do it annually on a calendar basis, then that means that whatever permit that they would be buying in between, we would either have to prorate or they would be paying the full amount for a shortened period of time. Logically.
Just for, and you, both of you can chime in on this. My suggestion would be annual from the date that the permit is issued.
That would be
So it
easier if
takes-
it could be.
Rather than having, like, say, staff run out and have to do 10, 20, or whatever all at one time, they can do it as they're coming through.
Well, I would generally think that most people are going to be getting their chickens in warmer weather, so that would also be a better time for Ann or whoever's doing the inspections at that time to actually be able to inspect the property, as opposed to trying to do it in the middle of winter or inclement weather.
And then it allows the citizen who is doing this to get the full value of their permitted fee.
I agree. That would be my concern. I wouldn't want somebody paying $300 and then get a month out of it and then have to pay another $300.
like we do with liquor licenses?
Correct.
yeah, okay, so that's kind of the consensus, that we would do it as the permit is issued, it's 1 year from that date.
Makes sense.
Okay, and then, okay, let's do the fence thing or the screening thing. I think the problem with plants is that you have to buy it, because I think it's 6-foot requirement. That's an expensive plant versus, one that you buy at Menards or a nursery where it's a foot tall, and then you wait several years for it to be 6 feet. That won't pass the ordinance the way we have it set up. And again, this only has to be around the chicken coop and the run, so that's not a lot of fence necessarily. And so my question is, do we want to make it some kind of screen fence?
I think a screen fence is the only thing that makes sense. Plants I don't see working, because if the plant dies or gets diseased or anything else, somebody cuts through it, there's, wind tears it down. I mean, it's not a reliable structure. And like you said, it's going to take time to grow. I mean, really, what is a plant going to do? I mean, screening is built for this, so it makes sense for some kind of manufactured screening.
So are we saying a 6-foot solid fence around the run and the coop?
Yes.
You see, I think that's excessive.
It'd be some kind of mesh screening.
Well, we have to, okay, let's
Yeah.
take a step backwards
Yeah.
then. The requirement in Donovan's original draft is that you can't see it from any other lot.
I see that.
Right.
Well, I don't know how you do that without putting something around it.
Yeah.
So,
Can I ask, what was the purpose of the screening?
Purpose was really just to shield it from the view of neighbors. So whether it's 4 feet, 6 feet, depending on the size of the coop or whatnot, could be 3 sides. The side facing the house where the chickens reside don't need to be screened. But that was really the purpose.
So we're talking about just for blocking a visual. We're not talking about the run itself or any kind of, this doesn't include the run. The screened-in area that the chickens are going to be in.
Go around all that.
So it would go all around everything.
And you bring up a good point. Does it need to be screened?
So, my question is, because the word screen is indicative of, I don't want to see your chickens, right? So that's why you would have a screen. So if the resident already has an existing fence, does that meet the criteria of a screen? And then secondly, if the criteria of a screen is to contain the chickens versus to obscure vision of the chickens, then could the screen be a chain link fence or hardware cloth or some other type of barrier that contains the chickens in the chicken run?
The chickens would be contained in the chicken run with whatever material they make that out of. The screening was implied to be outside of all of that. So it could be said that the screening is a fabric or material that's on the chicken run and the coop on 3 sides so that neighbors can't see it. Not necessarily a 6-foot fence or something like that. So that could be an option as well. Or not at all, because everything's contained in the coop and the run.
Can you- yeah.
Do I have to state my name and all of this?
Yes,
Jessica
please.
Helmead, 308 North Jefferson. So I understand wanting to possibly block it from the view of the road. I think that's acceptable. But I think, I have dogs. I don't have a fenced-in yard. I have a fenced-in yard on 3 sides. But I don't think we are requiring that for dogs that go outside or other animals that go outside. If our chickens are already in a coop and a run that they're in, if we're putting a screening around it, we're not even going to be able to see our own chickens. And it's going to make it harder every time we have to get in to take care of them. We have to remove the screening to get in there. And I just think it's quite excessive to have it on all sides of it. If you guys want it blocking the road, that's one thing, but to have it on all sides when they're already contained in their coop and run just seems a bit much.
Thank you.
I'd be fine with it saying that as long as it's not visible from the street. So that way we don't have it in side yards and things like that. That's acceptable. If your backyard is visible to the street, then too bad.
And we, doesn't it say somewhere that it has to be in the rear yard?
Correct.
Yeah.
But it would have to be in the rear yard just so that it's not visible from the street. Some properties are going to be angled in a way that you can see the backyard is fully exposed to the street or the neighborhood because it's a side corner lot or something like
Front
that.
street or say a different street, the street that you live on and the street behind you?
Probably be from the front of the house. Like you know how you're not supposed to leave your garbage cans right
No,
up in
I
front
get
of your
that
house.
one, yeah.
It'd be something like that, not visible from the street to
From
the
the-
front
your
to the
address
facade of the
one.
house.
And
So
are we doing like a fence of 6 feet still to block that, say that? Because that's gonna wipe out a lot of the subdivisions, because their HOAs are 5 feet, so the HOA people can go by and actually look in your backyard.
Yeah.
Mine's only one grandfathered in, because ours was put up before HOA set their bylaws.
I have my own opinions about HOAs, but we'll.
No, I'm saying
those.
because you said 6 feet, but I'm just saying, so like a lot of HOA subdivisions,
We're
you wouldn't be
eliminating-
able to do the 6 feet.
We're eliminating that.
But I tell you, so
Wait.
from the view if you need to block it from the
Right,
back.
but
What's
we're not
that's
saying
what we're
what the
debating is
height is.
I'm saying I'd
Yeah.
be fine getting rid of in an ideal world, whoever wants to do this, I would say should have a privacy fence. In an ideal world,
In an ideal-
because
I get it.
if you've got pets, if you got dogs, you really should have an enclosed fence for their safety and everybody else's. But not everybody's going to do that. So, I get the point that
I see what you're saying.
having a full screen and visibility blockage is a little excessive, but I would say as long as we have it so that it's not, if you're standing in front of the house, from corner to corner in front of the house, and you're looking at the house, you don't see a chicken coop on the side of the house. Or
Yeah.
if you're, like I said, if your house is, on a corner lot, and it's like we've got some of these ones downtown where their backyard is in full view of the street, from the street, on any angle, then sorry, you can't do it, because then it's going to be right there in full view of everybody.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. Keep in mind that if the city ordinance says 6 feet, then the HOA rules can inflict on that.
I've heard otherwise from them.
No, I used to run an HOA, so.
Yeah, they kind of think they're their own city.
I know.
Yeah.
But so
Another reason why I
Dan,
have
so
my
I'm going
opinions
back
on
to your
insurance.
thing on it. So you're saying tough luck, but if they want to put in a privacy fence because their backyard goes up, they can still get the chickens as long as it's blocked.
Yeah,
from
if
the
your
privacy.
if your backyard, if you're talking in the backyard and your backyard is fully exposed to on 3 sides because it's right, just some of the houses were built that way. So now it's defeating the purpose. But yeah, if they want to put up a privacy fence, I don't see any reason why that makes sense.
Of the front address street, not another side street.
Correct.
Okay.
So like if you
No, I'm making sure,
Yeah,
I'm trying to
mean,
get sure.
just because there are houses that if you make this the requirement, they literally will not fall within this requirement because the way that the house is positioned on the street. I mean, you go
So
to
if
some of the
it's-
subdivisions, they're that way.
So if it's the side, so if they've got like my lot, I've got front, I'm on a corner. So it's, my whole yard is visible, between those two streets.
Yeah.
The whole yard is visible, so I'd have to somehow put up a fence
For the street view on the
for
one
either
side.
street,
For either street on the sides, yes.
so side or front.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
Okay, no, so I was wondering, I thought you meant like the address street of your house. Because say like mine, because I don't have to worry about, if I don't even get chickens, and I have a privacy fence, but my backyard butts up to Airport Road. So it's a county road, but it's in city limits. So like that, you would have to get a fence then? Is that where you're going with?
If it's,
Visible from
yeah, I
that
mean,
county
it
road?
would
Yes.
fall within that. I mean, county road's kind of a weird distinction as far as jurisdiction because it's still a county road.
It's
But
a road,
yeah,
yeah.
so yeah.
So it can't be visible from a road?
From
Is that what
roadway,
we're-
just say
A
from
the
roadway?
road, yeah, it just can't be
Okay.
visible from the roadway.
Any roadway? Okay.
Well, a roadway adjacent to the property
Yeah.
would make more sense because I would say any roadway can be.
Right.
Somebody could file a complaint against the person with the chickens and say I'm 2 streets over and I can see it. I mean, just
Yes.
That's a
I
good
hate to
distinction.
say it,
Yes.
but that verbiage is yeah.
That's a good
I
distinction.
would say just from the road, adjacent roadway to the property is fair.
Thank you.
Can we move on then?
Charlie,
Or
does
is
that
there
move
an
us to
agreement on
fees?
that? We have agreement on that, right?
3 out of 1, I'm not in agreement with it, but go ahead.
That we're gonna remove the screening and,
I just saw the road thing on that. I get if it was the front yard, if you're looking from the street
oh,
from that one.
I zoned out on that one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know you did. But then he actually answered what I thought he was talking about, and I disagree with that one.
So Charlie, it would be get rid of the screening, no fencing requirement.
Yeah.
But the coop would not be visible, could not be visible, unexposed,
Adjacent
from
roadway.
an adjacent roadway.
Right.
But obviously, if it would be, they can put up a privacy fence to cover that side, and it would then not fall within that.
Does that bring us to fees?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Fees and fines, so I think we should keep the 300.
Yeah.
Because I still think that's a good idea to have that initial, especially now that we know that there's probably some even more things to consider as far as the health of the birds and so on.
Right.
Ensure applicants pursuing packages don't do this as whim, so we'll leave that on because there won't be any charges for planning and zoning hearing fees.
Right, right.
Yearly fee amount was at 30, and the way I took it from the last meeting is that that is sufficient to handle the banding requirement, and therefore that is only charged on a yearly basis is the $30 renewal.
Yeah.
And the inspection that the development
I think that was pretty much what the
Department.
30 was to cover, was the inspection more than, I mean, the bands were like, what, you said like under $1 to supply, so.
Yeah.
But we'd have to, if we're gonna do the bands, we just have, those would have to be issued by the city. We have to keep a record on the number of the bands so it matches the birds, so the city knows how many birds they have and which ones they've got.
Okay, so we're in agreement on that then. Is
Yeah.
that true?
Yes.
Makes
And
sense to
so
me.
no per chicken fee.
Okay. Now, the rest, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. These proposed additions are, do I need to read them all or no?
No.
Kind of hammered quite a few of them already.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I
did.
have.
Should have-
One question
that.
though, for the $300 and the initial startup and everything, we're talking about the education side of it, the online video or whatever, did we want to add any verbiage requiring the half-day? That was offered, I just wanted to say, or is that something that we want to add or take advantage of?
Oh,
It would be a one-time thing, so it'd be before they're issued the initial permit. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't have to do it annually, but if,
How about recommendation?
yeah, they'd be getting a letter of recommendation. I mean, basically saying that they've checked it out and
Yeah.
they understand what's involved. I mean, that was our big concern, was the education, because we didn't want people going into this, paying all the money, and then, you know, like you said, just dumping the birds or slaughtering the birds or whatever because it was something that they did because their kids wanted to do it.
You want to make what a requirement now? What do you
Well,
want?
it was the offer for having the half-day visit to the bird sanctuary, so that, you know, with a letter of recommendation to the city saying that they've visited and they understand what's involved, because it's a hands-on thing versus a web video.
Is that free?
Well, wait, hold on one second. Go ahead, Donovan. Yeah, and honestly, I let it go a couple of times. Even when being asked a question, because our microphones don't pick up everything, you need to be by the microphone.
I'm sorry. that's
So
my fault.
if we move forward with that, great idea. They would apply for the permit before we issue the permit. They do their volunteer work there, get the letter of recommendation, bring it back to the city, and then we could issue the permit.
I mean, there's no cost to it. I see it as only an upside thing. I mean, if that's,
We have a citizen that
Yeah.
wants to speak,
So,
or wishes
Dave,
to speak.
you introduce yourself and your address.
Dave Helmead, 308 North Jefferson Street. I think it'd be quite a boondoggle to make everybody in this city go volunteer 4 hours of their time, half a day, whatever that consists of, to get this expert opinion to allow us to go forward with our chickens. I can have dogs, I can have fish, I can have kids. I don't have to get permission from anybody, certainly somebody I don't know. A lot of time was given today, a lot more time than other people have had to speak on a regular basis to an expert that was brought in front of this board. I would also like you to address some of the things you said earlier. Cite the cities and their complaints when you say a lot of other cities that don't want to talk about. I mean, they're a little secretive. I'm not sure what verbiage you used about how they keep their complaints kind of on the lowdown. They don't really want to share it. I'd like you to share it. If you're going to bring it up, share it and cite it.
I'm going to ask you to be respectful to this committee, or I'll ask you to leave.
I've said my piece.
Thank you, Lou.
please.
So it wouldn't be a letter of recommendation. It wouldn't be like me saying, well, I think that it would just be like, yes, they were here. I told them everything that they need to know, showed them everything that they, that they should know. And that's it. And then just cite it. So, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be my opinion in any way. It would just be like, yes, it's been done. So.
And I would say that, if we're going to require some education, that we give people a choice. Like they could take a class, right? Some class, not online, but some class. I mean, we can work with the library. There are plenty of people that can teach that or
Do this thing?
or do that.
Yeah.
You
Give
know,
them
and
a
I know
couple
for me personally, I would, going into something like this, not really knowing, not that I'm going to, but I would want to do that and really get a good hands-on sense of what is involved.
It makes
So,
total sense to me. I mean, one of the
Yeah.
things that I've recommended to anybody that's looking into this is if you don't know anything about chickens, have never cared for chickens, go to a farm and go around the chickens, talk to a farmer that's around here, experience yourself with the chickens. If you've got small children and they've never been exposed to chickens, and you want to teach them about chickens, bring them to somewhere where they have chickens and have them be around the chickens and see what they're going to be like. I mean, if it's free and it's only a couple hours, there's no restriction saying, hey, you went, they're not recommending you for it. It's
Right.
just so
It's
that
just you were there.
we're
Yeah.
saying, if you want to be responsible and you want to know about it and make your decision. We haven't taken any of your money yet from the city. We haven't approved anything,
So
but
if I can help with this, I know one of the discussions, and I'm just asking for a couple of seconds here. One of the discussions early on was to require a class, but it's a matter of timing. And this would be an alternative option.
Yeah.
To be able to go to the chicken sanctuary, to do that as an alternate.
Yep.
in order so that the permitting process doesn't get bogged down because of timing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
Timing as far as the educational component,
yeah,
So
I mean,
Either or, huh?
in either or.
yeah, I mean, if you've already taken a class at the community college on, agriculture care, I mean, I think if you can show that to say, I don't think that's kind of in excess, I
Right.
mean, but
Okay, Jessica Helmy, 308 North Jefferson. I think having an educational option is beneficial to everyone, but I don't think forcing us to go work at someone's nonprofit for the day is the answer to that. I think it could be an option if people want to go there, but you don't honestly know if we've had chickens before, where I lived prior to living here. You guys don't know all of somebody's background and what they know or don't know about chickens. I think having a class they have them at Tractor Supply, they have them at the library, they have them all over the place. If you want us to do that or online, like having options is fine, but telling us we have to go work at somebody's nonprofit and forcing us to go volunteer our time for hours at somebody, I already volunteer my time all over the place. I don't need to volunteer my time and we can't guarantee that Georgia's sanctuary is going to be there forever. So adding that into the clause, unless you're going to say any sanctuary or any farm, you can't necessarily.
Do it, Jessica.
What?
I think that's all we're gonna do. We're not gonna
Yeah.
at least I won't be voting for it if we name these are the places you have to go. I think it's
So
gonna
just
be.
an
I-
educational
It's
thing in
an option.
general?
I'm
Yeah.
not saying it has to, and I don't think it would be fair to Georgia Sanctuary to, say that they're the only place that people
Sure,
can
but
go because now they're working around all these people's schedules. But what I'm getting at is I think having some kind of letter saying you actually went and
So could I go to my
Understood.
friend's farm and say, hey, I sell their chickens and I worked for the day? Because that's educational too, right? Because then,
if they have a letter saying that you
Yeah.
were there and that you spent the time
just-
around them,
I mean,
think
I
that's
just
fair.
think,
No,
like, once
actually,
again-
I'm gonna advise against that only because the idea is to provide education. I mean, when you just go to a family friend's farm or something like that, someone can just sign off a letter. I think it does need, if you're gonna go this route, to make it structured somewhat and provide options. Like in this case, Georgia's sanctuary is just a name that we know right now. But it'd be no different than requiring, in other communities, requiring like a rabies shot for a dog. You don't have to go to, Billy Bob's veterinarian. You can go down the street to somebody else. It just has to be a qualified educational component. So if it's, Tractor Supply that has a class, that would be a qualified program.
I'm fine with, I think it's better if you guys just say like it has to be an educational course that you took, rather than you have to go volunteer your time and work at
Right,
somebody's.
and that's why they're writing it, they're trying to write this in a way so that we have broad enough language to be able to cover multitude of questions. For, not just for right now, but for years to come, should it pass the 2-year probationary period.
Right.
So that's why it's, everybody has to kind of give and take a little bit here.
No, I just think that we've been at this for like 8 months now, and we've we've brought in facts for all of these things, and then people show up I understand that they maybe just heard about it or whatever, and they just want to show up. It's like, we've been at this with statistics and facts and all of these things. Like, we wanted an educational, we all agreed on that. So I just think that we've been at this for a really long time, and we've already kind of gone over some of the things that newer people haven't really gotten the chance to either hear or learn, you know what I mean?
But keep in mind,
Sure.
though, that, again, they're trying to, if it passes council, this is a policy or an ordinance that is meant to last at least through the 2-year probationary period and potentially even longer. So it's not, it may be 8 months, or it may feel like 8 months. Staff has been at this as well.
Right.
So that's why you have to be very careful how these things are done. It does grind down to a slow pace, but it's to make sure that things are done correctly. As a point, and I don't mean to
Yeah.
ponder on like this, but and thank you for indulging me
Sure.
on this. We thought we had a draft ordinance ready at the last council meeting.
Right.
And we find out now, no, we did not have everything covered. So
Right.
yeah, unfortunately, this is the process.
Oh, I understand that. I'm not even saying that the process, I'm saying, you know, as far as like when we've provided so much information that then when new people come in, they maybe don't know all of the information and everything we've gone over. So it seems like, you know, you guys have given a lot of time tonight to Georgia Sanctuary, which is great to learn.
We gave her 3 minutes.
Absolutely. But
Yeah,
it seems
that's 3
like-
minutes, Jessica. You've had more than 3 minutes right now.
It's
So-
more than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, there's been a lot that we've already gone over that maybe the new people haven't really,
We were
Caught
on our
on,
way,
you know what I
we
mean?
were on our way to compromise.
yeah,
so,
and I'm
Yeah.
fine, I was just coming
Yeah.
up really
Well,
to address that.
Well, and the other thing too is that, and I appreciate Georgia Sanctuary coming in to
Oh,
give us this
absolutely. I think it's fine.
information because I've driven by it probably hundreds of times since I've lived here and I didn't know anything about it. So I think it's great to put a face to the name, and I would say that for you guys that want the chickens, somebody like this in your corner is one of the most invaluable people you could bring in. Probably more valuable with her expertise than any of the people that want to just have one in their backyard, because she does this every day and deals with injured birds, dumped birds, and the problems that we're
Right.
that we're concerned about. She deals with. So that's helping us come to a better resolution and honestly compromising more in your favor.
Yeah, which I'm not saying that it wasn't helpful, I'm just saying, like, we've, you know, when we've gone over it, there's, you know, whatever.
No, it's okay. I'm fine with having options. I think
Yeah.
it's a great point to make. It's not the only option that we would have, but if there's
Right.
2 or
But
3
it's
options.
nice to know that it is an option.
Yeah,
and it's
partner
right,
with the library, partner
it's
with
right here, yeah.
partner with Tractor Supply, whoever in
Absolutely.
town, or if there's one, if they've got, I would say maybe have the language say that if there's an outside source, it doesn't have to be excluded to these, but if they took a class at a college or another outside organization that's recognized as
So
a,
staff can write that in a way so that we give some decent parameters
Yeah.
for what would qualify.
that makes sense.
Great. Well, and I just want to make a comment to Dave and Jessica. Just, you know, this is, and Lou alluded to this, but this is an ordinance that applies to every property in the city. It's not just about you and what you want to do. I mean, you've been here and some other folks have been here and have provided a lot of very good input. We've also had folks who had concerns, and we're trying to balance all of that and make sure this is something that works not only for all of our residents, but for our staff who need to enforce it. And I'm perfectly comfortable with us taking whatever amount of time we need to take in order to get that right, and make sure that it is something that's going to be effective and that we can be proud of going forward for many years. So, thank you. Charlie, I
Yeah, I
think,
just want to go over one more thing
Sure.
on here, the denial revocation and,
What page?
2 on my thing, but
It's after,
it's like
yeah,
100 on yours.
backside of the permit requirements.
This is where, you know, how you could lose your license to have chickens, I guess, and be denied. False statements, you gotta have all your fees and fines paid. Failure to correct deficiencies, there's a 3 strike you're out clause in here if you have violations. And then removal of coop has to happen right away within 14 days if you do lose your, you know, the idea here is just to make this clean at the end, you know, and this also talks about people who do not renew. I mean, you
Right.
know, chickens
Yeah.
ain't for me, and
Yeah.
so they decide they want out of it. They can't just leave the coop there and so on. They have to remove it.
I have a procedure, I guess it's a question, do we, about, because it goes along with the paying the fees and stuff, that just kind of popped in my head here. Do we have any language in our ordinances that say if somebody's making an application for, let's say, example, something like this, but they've got outstanding, like, fines and fees that they owe to the city? Do we have existing language that would prevent them from
Oh.
getting accepted for something like this? I mean, because what I'm saying, I guess an example would be like
They
if
have to
some,
be in good standing.
well, I'm saying is that, like if they already owe the city like 2 or 3 fines for not mowing their lawn or like several other citations, and they apply for something, are they able to be denied for
And are-
something they're applied for because they still owe the city other money?
Our attorney might be able to chime in on that.
I'm
but
curious. I'm
My
not saying I
understanding
need it.
is you can't make it broad enough like that, so that, like, technically, under that term, or if you leave it too broad, someone could be denied a permit because they owe a library fine.
I'm just curious. I was just wondering if that's something that we already have, or if that's something
We don't.
I think if you narrow it to if they have outstanding property violations, I wouldn't tailor it to a fine.
Okay, if they have outstanding
But if they have
property violations.
outstanding property violations.
I mean, only because, I mean, if somebody's already a major nuisance, that's always been a concern, that we don't want somebody who's been a major nuisance making more nuisances. So, I mean, and obviously people that are applying it aren't gonna have that, but if we've got a situation where somebody's had multiple property violations and they're currently in violation, is that something that, I'm just saying,
There is
Do we wanna
currently no ordinance that would prevent the city from, or permit the city from denying a permit based on past nuisances. So
what about
if you,
I guess what about active ones?
there's no ordinance that would prevent that either.
Okay.
So if you
I'm just
want
curious.
some of that language, you would need to include it into this ordinance.
Okay, I'm not saying we have to add it, I'm just saying that it's just something that if we're talking about fines and fees and that they're paid up, I mean, if somebody's in an active violation in multiple cases or something already, is that something we want to add or not? It's not something we have to, but,
I'm taking by the hints I'm getting from staff that actually would be useful in this situation,
okay.
and we could write that into the fines.
And
or
that
the-
is
this
a
section.
denial,
We're
revocation,
able to
non-renewal.
look
Yeah.
at that for other ones then? For like other,
Not tonight.
I know
Not
that's.
tonight.
Well,
Yeah.
no,
Thank
no,
you,
no, no,
Direct
Charlie.
staff, not
I,
us.
I think you're onto something good, man. I mean, if somebody wants to like get a building permit for a garage and they've already got a bunch of outstanding existing, property violations, I mean, I think.
So that's something that staff is here to take note, and we'll
Okay.
look into it and present it at a later meeting.
Okay, so we want to add some language in here saying that if the person has outstanding property, within what we're allowed to, as far as not making it too broad. or
All you
too
gotta
specific.
do is expand on the failure to pay any application penalty, reinspection, or reinstatement fee required. You could expand that to be beyond the chicken thing, and you've got it.
Okay, yeah, that's fine with me. I mean, however, I guess, Lou, however the
Yeah,
language
and we'll
needs to
check it
be-
out with our city attorney on
Yep.
exact verbiage.
The only other thing that I want to add is that I'm just going to suggest some kind of due process or appeal or review if somebody's denied or revoked.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean,
I think you just can't put it on staff's just going to deny or revoke. I think that's fine, but they have to have a process to have that reviewed. And
Yeah.
I think that should be added to the ordinance.
would it make
There's
sense?
something in there, but I don't know if it's general or not, where there is a process to take it before city council to question those kind of actions.
And again, unfortunately,
I
caught us
think-
flat-footed, so we will look into it and report back.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we have another citizen that would like
Sarah?
to talk.
Yes, Sarah Berg, 508 Old Orchard. I have a question about violations of people who don't have permits. How you would enforce that, because you'll no longer have an ordinance saying that they're not allowed. So where's the enforcement language to handle people that do not have permits to do this?
So that's a typical, and I'm looking over in case I misspeak here. But when someone has a violation because it's not permitted within the city, we normally take that up with essentially taking them to court. And then at some point go for a lien against the property if we can't get payment. We have.
The intent would be there because if we're allowing it, we're saying that the city's gonna be inspecting this, so unfortunately, I mean, the
And
name of the
there's-
game is they're gonna have to actually.
I mean, if they have the chickens and they haven't gone through the process, I mean, there's very specific things that they're required to have and fees to pay and all of that. So I think it gives us more to work with. Donovan?
The goal is always compliance, so we'd give them a reasonable amount of time to apply for the permit, which typically 7 days. And the permit would be on hold until they complete the course, when the next one is available. In our building regulations, and it can be added here, if you don't get a permit, your permit fee is doubled. So it would now be a $600 fee instead of $300. I would imagine we could do that here as well. And then it'd be up to them to finish that out. So next available course, if they don't comply, then we'd have to send a final notice to remove the chicken and accessory structures. And then the next step would be court.
In regards to the ones that already have chickens that aren't supposed to have them,
Right now.
but I can't do anything because I can't see through the fence.
So it'd be the
Sorry.
same process.
Share the microphone, sorry.
It'd be the same process. If we're aware that these chickens exist, and I think we discussed this before, with the privacy fence, there's an expectation of privacy. If there's a second-story home next door, we're able to view it from a bedroom window upstairs or a hallway window, what have you, then we have a right to cite them for that violation. The other option is an administrative search warrant, which I've done before, not for chickens, but that's another option on the table.
To be clear, the ordinance under consideration does not address non-compliant people who currently have chickens, just to be clear.
It would have to be the same process that we follow.
Back up a bit here, Lou. There, on the
Fourth
permit
Amendment.
requirements page 1 of the second document, permit requirements, third bullet.
Okay, that answers my question. I mean, as long as that's legal, then that's good for me.
I thought I had that in there. Okay.
I just overlooked it, but
Yeah,
I mean,
and
as
we'll-
long as the verbiage is there, that's fine. I mean, it just
Yeah,
makes sense
we'll
and it's
confirm
easier
the
for them.
verbiage.
Very thorough, Charlie.
Well, I hope somebody's been writing this down.
Yeah. We can always go to the tape.
And can turn this into a motion, or a request for a motion or something.
So I would guess that the motion would be something along the lines of, to have this ordinance, or recommend, this ordinance go before the council for, to be approved or denied, with the additional language that's been discussed.
With the additional language and edits that.
And edits, thank you.
I'm fine with that. I mean, I don't think we need to do
I can't make a motion, I'm just
Yeah.
giving you the.
Well, I'm
verbiage.
just saying, I'm letting you guys know, I'm fine with that. I don't think we need to come back to committee again for us to review what we already said we we're gonna change. I mean, I'm fine with sending it up to city council with those changes.
Would you make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Just tomorrow, are we done going through all the proposed changes? Okay. So I want to make sure you guys
Matthew
covered
second.
all the
Yes.
things you want to discuss.
Yeah, so you have a motion, a second, Chairwoman.
Wait, who seconded?
Matt,
Matt?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further comments, questions, discussion? No? Those in favor signify by aye. Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. I think we just have one item on the agenda, and that is new business. Is there any new business?
I have nothing for you.
Okay. Anybody on the committee have new business?
No.
Okay.
I just have a question. So now that it's going back to council, will that be the March?
Yeah.
It will be March, okay.
Yes, March 26th.
26th, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, yes.
March 26th at 7 PM, right here.
Right here, yes.
Same bat channel.
Okay,
And,
motion,
well,
go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, no, see,
So sometimes, motion
fast,
ordinances, again, it's more just so there's some clarity. When we review the agendas for council meetings or for committee meetings, sometimes there's issues like, say, for our fiscal budget year that take a higher priority. It's not a slight against anybody's wishes. It just, we have to balance time as well. As you can tell, this was one topic that took almost 2 hours, hour and a half. And we still don't have all the edits done. So just, again, it's a process, and this committee tries to do the best they can to satisfy everybody or, well, the needs of the city.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
thank you, Lou.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Charlie,
Yes, sir.
he's asking a second, right? The motion to adjourn.
Oh, I did.
Can you guys,